call it my prayer, it is simple and clear. It wants me to give and receive love. I call in the light to make everything right and show me the way to just be love. And show me the way to just be love.
Hello and welcome everyone to Rewire Your Attachment with Maya Diamond. I'm here today with Mark, who is a wonderful man who is actually my mom's partner. And the reason that I chose to talk to Mark today is because I thought I really want to interview a man who is securely attached and who is the most securely attached man I know. So I thought through my Rolodex of men and thought, and Mark just really stood out as a really healthy, loving, secure man. And so we're just going to talk about, relationships, love, communication, intimacy, trust, all these really important topics when it comes to healthy, secure relating. So I'm so excited to introduce you today to Mark, and we're going to, so welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you. Thank you for saying such kind things.
Yeah. So we'll start with this question that's really near and dear to my heart, which is, what does emotionally intelligent mean to you? What do those words mean to you?
That's a great question. It's a great place to begin. Emotional intelligence for me is, does someone have the ability to really connect? Does someone have the ability to be compassionate, to express empathy, to understand what you're talking about, not only on the issue level, but also the feelings underneath? It came to me, I had to come to this place in my life. I wasn't born with a lot of emotional intelligence, nor did I learn much emotional intelligence when I was educated in elementary school, high school, or college. It came to me later on, and I realized how critical it was, that it was, in my work, it was as important as IQ. And it's rare. It's hard to find it in men, particularly of my age group. But it's more common, I think, in younger men, but not always. Do you want a little more?
Yeah, so I'm so curious, what was that? What kind of work are you speaking of where you felt like it was really important, and around how old were you when that turning point came?
Well, I became a mediator. I was a political activist for a long time and a community organizer, and it led me into the field of conflict resolution. And as I entered the field of conflict resolution, I became a mediator. And as I became a mediator, I realized how much I had to learn. I learned how to learn so much. And I realized that I really needed to learn how to identify with people in conflict, that conflict had an issues level and it had an interest level, which we can talk about the underlying drive and fire that would give disputes power. And, you take a simple thing with a couple, like, I can't stand the way you drive. Like you're driving with someone and, I don't like the way you drive, and then you start an argument about driving and what's safe and what's not. And then you learn as a mediator and later as a counselor, I became a therapist out of it, is that's just a symptom. There's something else driving the dispute. And I had to pay attention because, like I said, it didn't come natural to me.
Beautiful.
Wish I had learned it when I was younger.
Yeah. So it sounds like you realize, I want to go deeper. I want to understand, be able to be even more compassionate, even more emotionally aware. And so I'm going to kind of take on learning these skills.
Yes.
And I know you're in a men's group, and I'm curious, how long have you been in this men's group, and how do you feel like it's shaped you as a man?
This men's group I've been in for over 20 years. It's a different kind of a men's group than a men's support group, like emotionally support group, a smaller group. I've been in those too. This group started strangely. It really, I have a friend of mine who's kind of a sports addict, and he started to gather a few guys together to go over his house and watch either basketball or football. And what happened was we did that for a while, and we said, let's span this out a little bit. Let's meet once a month on a weekday, and we'll invite people, and one person gets to call it, and it could be going to a play, having dinner together afterwards. In other words, it would take any shape. Or somebody might say, let's talk about have a conversation about humor or politics, or we'd get together and talk about all kinds of different ideas and items, and people would just show up, those people who are interested in it. Well, this has continued over 20 years. It's very casual, and people have emotional support things that happen on the side, like, for instance, when I first went to the group, I was the oldest man, and I had been in, I'd had a couple of divorces in my life, and I was the only person in the group out of more than a dozen men who had ever been divorced.
Wow.
And one night they asked me, Mark, how do you feel about being the only person who's had multiple wives and spouses? And I said, I feel pretty good about it. I said, but that's only temporary, you understand?
Yeah.
And everyone looked at me. I said, this is not going to stay the same here as it is right now, because there's adult development. People become different people. I said, till death do us part is kind of a nice saying, but it's sort of a myth based on very short lifespans and a different time in the world. I said, but it doesn't have to do with adult development. So we talk about well, more than half of them are divorced now. And we talk about relationship and with the women. It's actually, is anyone in the group gay? I don't think so. No, it's all actually heterosexual men. Yeah, it's all heterosexual men. For the first time I just thought about it. I never thought about it before.
And I love, you just brought up the word women, and I want to jump to this question, which is, how do you hold, I believe that the way we hold the gender, other genders, is kind of the way we relate to them really impacts the way we relate to our partner, right? So if our partner is another gender, for example, your partner is a woman, and I believe your views on women, how you hold women in general, how you think of women in the world in general, really impacts the way you relate to your partner. For example, if you have a hard time respecting women, it might be hard to respect your female partner. Or if you have a hard time believing that women are powerful, it might be hard to believe that it's okay for your partner who's a woman to be powerful, things like that. So, and vice versa for men, if you feel like all men are untrustworthy, it's going to be really hard to trust your partner who's a man, right? And so I'm just curious, if you kind of felt into, what is your relationship with just women? How do you hold women?
I'm a very lucky man. I had my dad, who's still alive. He's 90, going on 99.
Yeah. Shout out to Luca.
He taught my brother and I particularly to be very respectful to women when we were very young. He was really clear about all kinds of things, in a very wholesome way. He and my mother and my father had a beautiful relationship. They were so respectful of each other. So I learned respect for women, and was very close to my women in my family from a very young age. I loved them all. They were all different and all great, and they made me laugh. They took care of me. They nurtured me much more so than the men. The men were different levels of supportive, from none at all to hope they paid attention to me sometimes. So my attachment to women is pretty healthy. I mean, I
Right.
look at women as, wonderful beings who I would be really happy if they expressed their power more, because men could take a back seat and they have a lot to learn from women. That's what I believe. And I've learned a lot in my life, and I watch my friends learn a lot. And I believe that's probably, across the board true. That women have a lot to teach men if they'll allow themselves to be taught. So
Yeah.
I hold women in a very special place, and I've had great friendships with women most of my life. I've had the honor of being asked to be at a number of births in my life that were women friends of mine, just asked me to keep their husband's company or attend a birth, and that whole being, watching a birth is, if you want to understand how special women are.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
The power. Yeah.
That'll do
And
it.
strength. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. And then speaking of women, I'd love for you to just share a little bit about what was your relationship with your mother growing up? How did you feel in terms of that relationship, that connection? What was that like?
Well, I've deeply loved my mother, and she passed away more than 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the firstborn in an Italian-American working class family in New York City, Little Italy in the Bronx. And she was not educated, formally educated past 8th grade. She grew up in the Depression. Her story is a long story, but her connection to me was very powerful. She was fire. She was on fire. She was clear about what she needed to do in the world and how to be a good wife to my dad, and she lived it. And when I came in the world as the firstborn, I got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And and she would play with me a lot. And she was more of a stay-at-home mom then, and she sort of gave me more attention. But as she got older, she went back. She did some work outside the home. I was more complicated when my brother was born. But we were very close. We would hang out and play cards together, and we would talk. And she would ask me all kinds of questions. I mean, I was comfortable enough with her to discuss puberty with her as a young boy.
Wow.
And she was enough in the game to be able to help me to a point, and then to defer to my dad. So you should talk to your father about that one. And I was really close to her. I loved her a lot. She's a great woman.
Yeah. Yeah. She sounds very solid and powerful and loving and nurturing and there for you in ways that you really needed. And she was available because she was at home. So that's huge.
She was really available. Yeah, she was really available, and she had an incredible history, and some of it wasn't even clear to her what her history was because her mom died so young. But my mom really didn't take a lot of jive from people. She really,
she had boundaries.
She had boundaries, and she really told people what she thought of what was going on. But she encouraged me, like my dad would be, to be very respectful of young girls who I knew and women, and stuff, even if I learned something counter to that, to be, So I felt like I had really good mentoring around that.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thanks.
And how long have you been in your current relationship? And what is your favorite quality in your current partner?
Oh, my word. So, I don't know if you've ever heard of her before.
Yeah.
I met Judy, probably 7 years this month, actually.
Yeah.
Wow. 7 years ago.
Yeah.
We met online, and she was in California and I was on the East Coast. It's a story by itself, but I'll tell you what I learned a lot right from the beginning was we bounced into each other a couple of times over a couple of years of being online. And then I started to have a conversation with her, which lasted probably 2 months before I met her. it wasn't intentional, except that she was coming east to visit her daughter, her other daughter. And I said, great. Well, it's about 250 miles from here. I'm probably down there, a couple hundred miles. Why don't I come down and we'll meet? I said, and in the meantime, we can just chat, and
Yeah.
we did. And
Yeah.
I got to learn a lot about her. And what I love about her is I love that she's smart in her experience. She's a lot of experience. She's very wise.
Mm-hmm.
She's got fiber to her. There's strength.
Mm-hmm.
And her experience was not dissimilar to mine sometimes. She was a lawyer and then a mediator, and then she became a therapist, and she does couples work now. And I was a community activist, and then I became a mediator, and then a therapist, and then ultimately a coach.
Yeah.
And so we had tremendous overlap, and especially in the area of conflict resolution.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew what it was. She was around in the beginning of the mediation movement and conflict resolution coaching, and I was too. And I knew what a spiritual path was.
Yeah.
And so early on, I said to her, I know who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know who I am. We know where we came from.
The same language. Yeah. A
Spoke
really
the same
big language. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a delight to speak the same language because, even though I've had other relationships, I've been in marriages in my life, and I knew that very after I met your mom that we would have a very close communication, very close relationship in the area of communication.
Right.
And I was not worried about resolving conflict with her because I knew that we knew where to go with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I knew we'd have conflict, but we would know how to resolve it.
Right. Exactly.
And it's so powerful. Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
So we always fall back to that. We start laughing at each other, Sometimes we'll just say, well, look, you irritate me and I irritate you sometimes. That's natural. Okay, so what are we going to do with that?
Yeah.
It's perfectly natural to be irritated by the person you're living with. If you don't get irritated, I question whether you're really in the game. I mean, because you're not a rubber stamp of the other person.
No, there's always going to be differences.
There's
I love
always
that.
differences. Yeah. And so what are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
And I love it. I know when I get on the phone with her, if I'm funky or she's feeling funky, I can say to her, okay, I'm just going to be here for you right now and ask you some questions. And she'll say, I can listen to you. Or not. She said, I can't listen to you right now. Let's not talk about that right now. Let's talk about that later.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't freak out. I just say, okay, yeah, that sounds really good. Because what I believe about being in a relationship is you absolutely have to take care of yourself first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you take care of yourself first,
mm-hmm.
You will have the capacity to help the other person and support them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're on an airplane and you're with the child, many times, and they tell you when the oxygen mask drops,
right,
put yours on first,
yeah.
Then take care of the child.
Yeah.
You have to put your own oxygen on.
Yeah.
And that goes in relationship too. You got to take care of yourself.
Right. Exactly. Beautiful. So that brings us to self-care, which I love, which is exactly like when we really do our own self-care, when we have our own work-life balance, when we're able to take care of ourselves physically and emotionally and spiritually, then we do show up so much better in a relationship, right? That's 100% true across the board. And so I'm curious, what are your self-care things that you do? Because I know that you do have a lot of self-care things. So I'm curious what's important, and especially for men, I feel like it's really important for men to hear this, because what I've seen in our society is men have been kind of given the rule book, the script that they need to be working, success, purpose. That's what's the most important thing. And the truth is, then they don't have enough time, energy, or resources to really be there for their partner if they're and their family if they're constantly working all the time, right? And so or yeah, just if there's not enough self-care, then they can't be there emotionally for their partner or their children. Exactly. And so I'm curious, what are the things that keep you really healthy and sane?
Well, there's a number of things actually that I do, and I realize how important. It's funny we're talking about this during this time of
Yes.
the national
The
virus,
pandemic.
the virus and the coronavirus, because I've had to really reorganize myself to survive at a better level in isolation, in more isolation. So the things that I am really conscious about self-care is how I live my day. First of all, I mean, I get up every morning and I get out of bed, I visit the bathroom, and then I am down on the floor doing stretching exercises. They're not elaborate, but there's 25 minutes of stretching, a little bit of meditation, some Tai Chi, because after getting up, after being asleep, my job is to center myself so then I can move into my day with clear conscience. Like I want to be clear. And I take care of myself right away. And I learned this when I had two young children, 8 and 4, and my spouse and I separated. And I had them about 60%, 50 to 60% of the time. And I realized that I couldn't take care of them in the morning unless I took care of myself first. So I adjusted my entire schedule to get up an hour before them. And I would stretch, eat, do whatever I needed to do. And then when I woke them up, I was there for them.
Present and available.
Totally present. And that's what I do really, so I start that way, but it's also about exercise. Currently I'm walking 40 or 50 miles a week.
Nice.
I do, I do whatever I need to do, take good diet-wise, I try to take really good care of myself, pay attention to what my body needs, and emotionally declare where I'm at. I think that's the hardest thing for men to do, because when you're trained to work all the time, like when I'm a coach, there's a lot of overlap here between coaching and taking good care of yourself.
Yeah.
I always have to say to male clients, female, most women know this already, is how do you balance your day?
Yeah.
How do you take care of yourself? And I say, do you understand that, there's another name for work? It's called workaholism is the addiction that everyone applauds.
Right.
And they'll look at me. I said, do you know that workaholism has a downside? Yes or no? What is it? How would you tell me what the downside is?
Yeah.
It's interesting to watch men struggle. Women do not struggle. They know where they're disconnected.
Right.
Men struggle a little bit. So that's what I would say is, as a man, I had to learn, one, to really love not working full time. Yes. And go for that as a goal in my life and say, I'm not going to work full time. That's, people, when I first started doing it, a lot of my friends thought I was bananas. And I just said, now that's what I'm going to do, because I was taking care of my children too. I said, I'd rather put more time into my kids. And so I think taking care of yourself, knowing what you want and giving yourself time to figure things out also enables you to be in a relationship. Like, I'm happy in the relationship, or I'm not. This is what's wrong.
Yeah. Be able to communicate beautiful, which brings me to my next question, which is, exactly, there's always going to be, maybe new desires or preferences or feedback in a relationship that we need to communicate. And I believe that the way that we communicate that is important to our partner. And so I'm just curious, when do you communicate it? How do you communicate it? What does it look like for you in terms of feedback and preferences? How do you communicate that, and when?
Do you mean to communicate feedback I want to give to the other person, or a preference that I want to state?
Or a request. Yeah.
A request.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, those are tricky, aren't they?
Yes. And so important.
Let's start with feedback, because feedback is where you touch on the conflict resolution. When you give someone feedback, I used to coach in the workplace, and there's really not a lot of difference between feedback in the workplace and feedback in relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really not that much. And I would the way I try to act the way I speak about it, which is that if you're going to give someone feedback, you have to ask their permission first.
Mm-hmm.
Do they want to hear it?
Mm-hmm.
And can we make a time for it, or is now okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then two, what I tried to lead with, I just did it today actually with a friend. I went for a walk, and I really thanked him quite a bit for all the things he does for me in my life, and how he participates with me, and how deeply appreciated the whole relationship. So that's that I give that out first. And in my work, I try to practice. I always practice 3 to 1. Notice 3 things you see positive about the one person before the one thing you can identify that you'd like them to change. And then I'll ask them I noticed something, and I'll try to figure out why they said it to me, or what the value was in saying it to me.
Yeah.
And then say, do you want to add something to that? And we'll talk about it for a while. And then, I'd like it to change. And here's how I'd like it to change, right? I'd like it to look differently.
Yeah.
So, and I try to show it as a behavior. I try to identify it as a behavior that someone is using and has a positive and negative side to it. Like,
love that.
That you can overdo something like criticism.
Right.
You give someone too much of it, and or there's a bunch of different stuff. So what I try to do is identify. People don't like to change, and they only like to change a little at a time. And so give someone a little bit that they can deal with.
A little bit. Yeah.
And if you don't like the way I dress, right? And now women would care usually about that more than men.
Right.
And they usually don't notice that much. But all I would say is that, okay, is there something that you like that the way that I do dress? And they'll say, of course. Well, why don't you tell me that first? And we'll talk about that for a little bit. Oh, I like that you wear turtlenecks. It's Vermont. I love turtlenecks.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll talk a little more, and then I'll say, hey, you got some feedback for me on clothing?
Right.
And it can do that with anything, driving, clothing, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. That I love the compliments first. It's really another great, I love what you said about appreciation. It could just be an appreciation. It doesn't have to be a compliment. Sometimes can feel a little bit too much, but like, wow, I really appreciate, when you take out the trash every day. That makes me so happy. And, I'm wondering if you could also maybe take out the compost. That would just like really, really bring me so much joy and make me feel really provided for, or whatever it is. So just that, like, it's amazing to me how it's not easy to do the appreciation first. This isn't easy, what Mark is saying, in my opinion. It's not easy, but when you think it through before giving the feedback, you can kind of think like, oh, how am I going to give this feedback? Oh, maybe I can give a couple appreciations. What's some things I'm really appreciating about this person? And then give it to them. And it can be just so much more, the person can take it in so much more, right? It's like, we want the person, if you're giving your partner feedback, you want the person to be able to receive it and not to shut down or close down or feel criticized or hurt or blamed, etc. So I love what you said about the appreciation, as well as the, asking, is this an okay? I'd love to share some feedback. Is this an okay? Or I'd love to check in about some things. Is this an okay time? Or is maybe tonight better, or whatever?
It can be so respectful, if you're in the pyramid of communicating with the people we love, particularly in the workplace, but it's the same in a relationship, is if you want someone to change their behavior, you have to show them that you care for them. You have to demonstrate that, because that's what they'll hear. They'll hear the love first, and then they'll hear that you want them. I can get, I can spread the love even further if I change this one behavior. And I really try to step back here Maya. And when I look at someone, I say, oh, they're bugging me. And how are they bugging me? Like, I wish they would change that behavior. I can't believe they're still doing that. Like when, your mom may do something and I know her really well and she knows me really well. And I wanted to do something different. And I could say something like, oh my God, I've told you 45 times about that and you still don't do it. Oh my God, is that so derogatory? How do you feel when someone says that to you? That you're
Horrible.
stupid or you feel horrible. Yeah. But if you say to someone, you think about what you really want them to do different. And then I walk up to like your mother in particular and I say, I try to hug her from the back. She might be cooking. She's a fabulous cook. And I might want to give her a hug, maybe a kiss on the neck, and say, oh my God, I can't believe you're making another incredible meal, And then, she'll smile or something like that. Who doesn't like a kiss on the back of the neck and a hug? And she might say, and I might say a little later, and you know what? I'd love to talk with you a little later, or I want to chat with you when we're not cooking. Can I help you finish this meal up?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just in the context of living together.
Yeah.
Because that's how the disconnects happen. They happen one disconnect at a time. Yes, true. People do have affairs and they do horrible things to each other, but I think that that's symptomatic.
Right.
I can tell you from my life and the things that I've done wrong in my life that those disconnects have happened one small disconnect at a time, and then it's led to something large.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Maybe we shouldn't live together anymore.
Right.
What?
Right.
Where did that just come from?
Right.
So
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. It's like when we have those disconnects where maybe someone feels shamed or criticized or hurt or blamed or neglected or, then it's like, and there's no repair, then those things add up over time. And so, or feeling like, agreements aren't being kept, or feeling like, commitments aren't being kept, or feeling like the communication just keeps coming in a really critical or harsh or mean way. It's like those things, I think we can all take some of that, but if there's not enough repair and not enough feelings of safety and trust. And that's what, just because again, the whole theme of this podcast is rewiring your attachment style. To me, secure attachment, one of the biggest things that it means is, safety, trust, love, right? So it's like, we will all want to feel that safety, trust, and love in relationship. And what Mark is talking about is like, how do we cultivate that with the most important person in our lives? How do we keep that love and intimacy alive and blossoming and growing and, continuing to flourish and tend to that garden of our relationship over time? Because what I see is it's so easy in the beginning, we all know this, in the beginning of relationships, most people, all the attachment styles that I see, most people can really do all of this very, very well. But when it comes to long-term, over time, being able to do this day in and day out and really show up as this loving, kind, present, healthy person with healthy communication, healthy boundaries, healthy respect for yourself and the other, that's where, the rubber meets the road. And so I love that you're just talking about all these day-to-day things, because, and also about conflict resolution, because I believe that it's not the love, passion, or joyful times that keep a relationship. It's like, how do you work through the hard stuff, the conflict, that if partners can work through conflict well, then it's pretty easy to have a great relationship. And so, and most of us did not learn how to work through conflict in school, nor did we learn how to express our feelings in relationship in school, all this emotional intelligence stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's why I'm so passionate about teaching people and coaching people around these topics, because we just don't learn this stuff in school. So.
No, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty silly. It's pretty silly.
It's so striking. You need of all the things that I was taught in school, I could tell you it would have been really interesting if I was taught about emotional intelligence and compassion and patience and appreciating others instead of I don't know, algebra,
Exactly.
1.2.
Right.
I'm just saying that, for those people who want to study that, that's great.
Yeah.
But
Most people don't need a lot of that.
You don't need a lot of it.
No.
What you really need to do is figure out how to relate to people in the world.
Yeah. And so my next question is coming back to that feedback thing. So if your partner gives you feedback, makes a request, I'm curious, what is your process? Like, what happens for you inside when your partner makes a request or gives feedback?
I just tell them, go tell it to somebody else. I don't have time for you right now.
Yeah, right.
No. I think what I do, and there are different things people do, when someone has a feedback for me, I take a deep breath.
Okay.
Someone says they want to talk to me or they have feedback for me, like my daughters. I have 3 daughters. They've taught me so much about the world. And so if someone has feedback for me, no matter who it is, what I do, and I wasn't always like this, I have to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I would interrupt someone and, probably push back. I take a deep breath and I listen.
Okay.
And what I do now, and I got this from being a mediator, is just to listen, and I'm making mental notes in my head, about the things that are important. And then what I'm listening for is the feeling underneath. Which is hard for some men to do, it's hard for some women to do, but it's particularly hard for men. I think if people are intellectual, it's more work. And so what's the feeling underneath? Like I was with someone who, I had a phone call with a friend of mine who I had introduced to a woman friend of mine. And they had lunch together, and it didn't work very well. And she was giving him some feedback, and he had a hard time with the nature of the feedback and also perceiving that he was being rejected. And he, I think, said some harsh words to her in an email. And he'd only gone out with her once, for lunch. And he didn't really ask her some really important questions. So I take a deep breath and I say, what do I need to know? And I try to identify what the issue is and what the feeling is underneath, and then repeat it back to the person. Oh, so you're upset that I didn't make enough time Thursday night to hang out with you after being busy all day. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I told you that. You're right. I forgot about it. So owning up to what you've done wrong, when owning a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. I make many in a day.
Yeah.
And just saying, I make a mistake, and so, well, okay, let me see how I can do better with this next time.
Yeah. I think you're hitting the table a second with your,
Yeah. So,
say that again. Say that one more time, because that's so important what you just said.
Okay. What was it in reference to again?
So you said, I'll just repeat it back because I want to make sure everyone heard it because there's a little bit of sound. So you said, you said, I listen for the feeling underneath, like you listen for the need and what their interest is, their feedback, but also the feeling underneath what they said. And then you said, then you repeat it back to them. You summarize what you heard.
Yeah, and that's straight out of the mediation playbook.
Yeah.
It's therapy too, but it's really out of the mediation playbook. I repeat back my understanding of it, and it'll be refined. It'll go back and forth. I may not get it the first time.
Yeah. I
may say, oh, so you meant, and the person, I say it, whatever it is, and the person will say to me, no, it's not quite that, it's this.
Yeah.
And I say, oh, so it's this. And they'll say, yeah, exactly. And when I hear someone, you can feel it. You can also feel it. When someone knows that you agree with them, oh, it's a form of appreciation, really.
Yeah.
Appreciation for their
And
telling you,
connection. Yeah.
and connection. And you get it. You say, got it. Oh boy. And then sometimes I'll say a little bit about it. I'll say, oh, I see. I can understand why that was so hard. Or I can see, yeah, I can see where you got angry about that. I can see why you might be a little angry. And then the person might say, yeah, I did get angry, and back and forth. Well, that's something I can change. I think I can change that. I might need a little help. Like your mom and I have we do a great thing in the car, right? We started it when we first started. When you're in a car with someone, right? And they don't never know who drives the same as the next person.
No, nobody.
So nobody. So the person is doing something that you might not do, and maybe they're scaring you, or maybe they're whatever. They're not scaring you, or they're not moving toward the destination quickly enough. How do you give them feedback?
Right.
We have little hand signals. Like we've
That's
developed
genius.
this. Like
Genius.
Yeah, like this is a simple one. I always put my seatbelt on after I start the car going down the road. And your mom, it irritates her. So we worked out this thing where I said, look, don't tell me about it. I don't want to ever hear it.
Yeah.
I said, what I want you to do is tap me on the arm. She said, tap you on the arm? I said, yeah, just tap me. And she said, okay. And she tapped me on the arm, and I put on my seatbelt. It's
Brilliant.
magic, and it eliminates the tone of voice.
No conversation.
Irritation.
Yeah.
No conversation.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah.
Now you could take that and do that with all kinds of stuff, and I've coached people to do that in all kinds of situations.
It's brilliant. It's really brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because right. It's like and I want to highlight this. So part of having a healthy, secure relationship is, like I said in my TEDx talk, emotional responsiveness. And so it sounds like to me what you just said was emotionally, it was probably hard for my mom to see that your seatbelt wasn't on. I have a feeling it was hard for her emotionally. And so you were emotionally responsive to that need of her because it felt so strong probably for her. But instead of having the conversation over and over again, you said, this will make it a lot easier for both of us. Can we do this?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's emotional responsiveness in relationships. So I just want everyone to hear, like, that's Mark really listening and attuning and being able to respond to something that might be something someone else could be like, oh, that's not important. I'm not going to listen or validate your need, whatever. I can do this, but he cares, and he cares about the relationship. And he knows that even though it's a small thing, it's going to have a bigger consequence if he's not emotionally responsive to that small thing later. It could have a consequence in the bedroom. It could have a consequence in the kitchen. It could have a consequence 2 months later, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because little misses, you mentioned consequences later on, either in the bedroom or whatever, planning a vacation.
Yeah.
Anger, when you're angry at someone and you don't have a way of resolving it, or you have to resolve quite a bit of it, it builds up. And it creates distance. Yeah. Anger is a distancing emotion.
Yeah.
It's not an attachment emotion,
No, it's not come here. It's not come hither. No.
Exactly. It's not come hither. It's like later, So so whether we developed that one, but it could be something that you use around someone speeding. It could be something around talking out of turn somewhere, or not paying enough. You could have
a great one.
There is no limitation to how you could structure feedback, with hand signals or a tap, and it becomes secret supportive language, which it's kind of cool.
That. It's very cool.
It's very loving.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this would be great with children too. I'm thinking like certain kind of thing, communication with children, like, oh, this is a reminder. We're just going to do this hand signal.
Yeah. Well, you just reminded something. I have a 3.5-year-old grandson, and I could work a couple of things out with him.
Yeah. Cute. That would be
He's a
awesome.
whirlwind. Oh my goodness, it'd be a whirlwind.
That would be awesome. And
So,
and so if your partner, we kind of covered this, but I even want to cover it more because it's so important for relationships. So if your partner comes to you in emotional distress, maybe about their day, maybe even about you, they're just like in emotional distress. So that could be crying, that could be anger, that could be hurt. Yeah, like what do you do?
Boy, that's such a good question.
Yeah.
Now you're going right to the tough stuff here.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, if someone is really upset, and I'm in a good place, remember self-care. If
Right.
someone tells me they're upset, I try to immediately check in myself and decide, is this a good time for me to help them?
Okay.
Depending on what I think. So I might ask a question like, is this really large? Do you need, because, I'm not in a good place right now. Maybe I should talk to you in 10 minutes or an hour. So what I try to do is, if I'm going to have to support somebody, I try to make sure that I have the capacity. Once I determine that I have the capacity, if they tell me they're upset, I try to limit what I'm going to say and listen. Let them express themselves, let them discharge whatever it is that they have in their heart. There's an old therapeutic technique called what's on top, and being patient with someone and listening to whatever they have on their mind. Let them just whatever speak, kind of gesticulate, get angry, and nod my head. Sounds like you're pretty angry, until they can calm down. Or if they're crying, oh, I can see you're really hurt. You're really hurting about this. Okay, ask them some questions. Not try to shut it down. Just say, yeah, well, keep going.
I'm just going to pause you for real quick because you just did something that is so powerful, which is mirroring, what I call mirroring, what I learned in my therapeutic training, which is called mirroring, which is, it seems like you're really hurting right now. And so all you're doing in that moment, and I just want to really speak to the men, because I know that in male culture, there's not as much this communication as much as in female culture that I see anyway. And so it's a skill that is so simple, but so powerful. And what he's doing is he's just mirroring. He's hearing that she's hurt or feeling sad. Oh, it seems like you're feeling hurt or sad. And what happens when you mirror, when you say those words, is the person feels heard, seen, felt, and loved. Yeah.
Loved. I mean, you're making a connection with someone that's very, very, very powerful. Now, so all the men out there who are listening to this podcast, I don't do this perfectly all the time.
No,
I make mistakes.
Yes.
Yeah, and sometimes my partner will get tipped at me for not listening well enough, and my job then at that moment is to listen to her and say, okay, hey, I didn't do this in the way I should have. Let's try it again. We'll run it. I've even asked, start it all over again. Let's try this again.
Yeah,
let's take it right back from the beginning. Or just continue and I'll try to get it.
Beautiful.
And we're not perfect. And then you have
nobody's
to think about,
perfect at this.
Nobody's perfect.
No. Great.
You have to think about who you had as role models to do this stuff. I don't know about you. I had wonderful parents, but they actually had ground rules that they utilized. And I can tell you, it was not mirroring empathy.
Right.
It was something else. It worked for them, but it wasn't mirroring. I can tell you that.
Right. You learn this exactly outside of your family. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. Okay, so you were running through it when I paused you. So you would say, I'm hearing that you're feeling this. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like this is really hard. Tell me more about it. My training is really about get it all out. Help the people get it all out. Be present with them. Keep your own agenda to yourself. You don't need to say anything about their pain, really, that tries to rationalize it, make it go away, make it better. You don't have to say anything. All you have to do is listen and let them discharge. And sometimes that's all they need, and they start to clear up. You can see their face start to clear, and they're, laughing sometimes, or, oh, thank you. So I think there's a lot of tendency in men, because men is to solve the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we can figure this out. We can solve it.
Rationally.
Rationally. I'm not saying that I do this. I'm just saying
Right.
that's a tendency.
Yeah.
And it takes work to be there with someone and to just be patient.
Yeah. Beautiful. To be emotionally empathic. Exactly. And if you're another really key skill in relationship, and this is one of the skills that I teach in my work, which is self-soothing. And so I'm curious, for you as a man in relationship, we talked about how important it is for self-care. Like, how do you, say that you're really upset, and maybe instead of going to your partner first, or maybe your partner is not around, and so you need to self-soothe. Maybe, nobody, family and friends are not around, and so you just really want to self-soothe for yourself. How do you self-soothe when you're in emotional distress?
Good question. I never thought about it as, technique, or, if I'm upset, like I've had some anxiety in the last few days with the coronavirus.
Yeah.
I'll go for a walk, we'll go for a walk by myself or with someone else. I'm I listen to music. I use music a lot because I believe that music is very special.
Yeah.
And so I might put on some very relaxing melodies. I have, a playlist I like, and I might listen to that for 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
What I try to do is not take in additional information. Like some people, like I don't listen to any news in the morning when I get up. I move into my day by listening to music, preparing food for myself. I may read, but they're generally inspirational things because I need that. So I self-soothe through, I guess you'd call it non-linguistic.
Yeah.
I don't
more
really
walking,
want to talk.
music. Yeah.
Right. I might make food. I might start preparing food. I might go shopping, just get in the car and go shopping and say, I'm a little tense right now. I think I'll go shopping.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking to buy a lot of stuff, but the discipline of choosing, of selecting will kind of help me relax. I'll do, you know what it is? I got it. I try to do something that's comforting in a familiar way.
Interesting.
That brings me, like swimming. Like when I used to do a lot of swimming. I haven't been swimming in the last couple of months because of an injured shoulder, but your mom and I, matter of fact, it's one of the things we've been doing together for years. We swim a lot. Swimming, I consider swimming a moving meditation, a breathing meditation. I don't think about actually swimming how many lengths, but really it's a breathing meditation, and I am in a transformed state when I finish.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful, beautiful way to calm yourself, as well as just become present and in touch with yourself.
Tai Chi does that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tai Chi can do that.
What does integrity mean to you, and how does a man show up? This is a big question. So first of all, I want to ask, what does integrity mean to you? And then the second question is, how does a man show up in integrity in relationship with a woman? Like, what does that look like, do you think?
Integrity. This is a great question for me, because I've been working on building my integrity my entire life. And that has a lot to do with having a very honest father, but growing up in an environment that condones some corruption or cheating. And so it's a very important thing. And I think about it as working on personal honesty, like being a genuine person, being authentic, that people can see you and trust what you say, or that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, or treat them with respect. That you have principles, and that you're going to honor that. Now, do you make mistakes? Have God made mistakes? Yes. Yes. That, and we carry shame around that in our lives. And so you have to work on forgiving yourself for what you've done.
Yeah.
And that forgiveness is part of the pursuit of integrity. So you claim the shame. Yeah. And then by doing that, you can talk it over with a friend or a therapist or your partner, and you
coach, yeah.
claim it, and then it's yours and you can move on.
Yeah.
And then you wanted to know about relationship, right?
Yeah. Like, how does a man show up in integrity in relationship with a woman? What does that look like?
Well, that's a tricky one. That's a good one. I think, I don't know if I've ever really thought about it a lot. But I can tell you what it means to me, which is that you honor the other person's path and the self-care they need to take for themselves as much as you honor yours.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you have to do your self-care and you have your path, whatever it is, and they also do. And that you're going to come together sometimes, and sometimes you're not going to come together.
Mm-hmm.
And you might not get your way.
Right.
Your view of the world might not be the one that's chosen by the couple, by the joint parties. And you have to be ready to negotiate,
mm-hmm.
to be able
mm-hmm.
to declare your ideas and your preferences and feelings.
Right.
And then be able to listen to them and take in theirs, because you're not always going to match.
Right.
It's not always going to be fit.
Yeah.
And I know, maybe you've heard me say this before, to be with someone in a relationship, of course you need to love them, but you can love many, many people in many different ways.
Yes.
But to live with someone, you have to fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fit is critical to me. How do you resolve conflict? Yeah. It's not about love. It's about, how are you going to do this? How do you fit together? How are you going to work it out?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's what you wanted, if I answered your question.
No, it is. Yeah. And I think, and underneath, I'll just add one thing that I think you were saying underneath things, which is that just honesty, right? To me, honesty is so huge in terms of integrity. When I think about integrity, it's like being honest with yourself and honest with your partner. And that's, can be challenging, but it really creates that flow of communication, understanding, connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's why, one of the things I think about with that question is if a man is in integrity, if he's, maybe he's dating a woman and he knows in his heart that he isn't really ready for a relationship right now because, maybe he just needs to put his career first, or maybe he just got out of a relationship. And so if a man's in integrity, he will tell that woman, this is where I'm at, this is what my needs are. And then that woman can make a decision based on what he tells her. Right. So, I just want to stress, it's if a man's like, wow, I really like this woman, and right now all I'm up for is casual sex, right? Mm. That is 100% in integrity for him to share that and to be totally honest and truthful and not play games around that, right?
Right.
And same with a woman. A woman could totally be in that place too. And that's really high integrity for her to just be honest with herself and this person about what her needs are, what her availability is, what her emotional availability is in terms of connection and relationship. And I think a lot of our, relationship issues would be solved in our society if people were just in integrity and honesty around kind of where they're at and what they're available for. And so, if you need help getting clarity around that, sometimes it's really about getting clarity in terms of that, just really seeking help. I encourage everyone to seek help to get that clarity. And I'm available to help you get that clarity around what it is that you really need and want and desire in relationship and what you're available for.
That can be so hard to express. I mean,
right.
It can be hard depending on the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Okay. My next question is, I want to touch into the kid piece for a minute here, which is, why did you have kids, and what did that teach you about love?
Oh my goodness. Children. Well, I think I decided to have children because I was married to someone at the time who really wanted a child, and people around her, including her, some family members, were having children.
Mhm.
And I never ruled out children. I guess underneath, I always thought I would probably have children, but
Mhm.
I find a lot of men are not the drivers to have children.
No.
Women have the biocultural imperative most of the time.
Yeah.
Some men do, but
Yeah.
women are usually in the position. I mean, men cannot have children without women, you know?
Right. Totally. Right.
Totally.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So, I mean, they can. Men can have children without women. Well, a woman
It's
somewhere
true.
has to deliver the child. You
Yeah.
can adopt it. You can be in a relationship with another man, decide you want a children,
Yep.
and find out how to do that.
Surrogate.
But
Yeah.
for me, what it was I thought it was new. It was fascinating. I knew I would learn.
Yeah.
And I love transformation. I mean, that's what I'm addicted to in my life is transformation.
Yeah.
So I thought, wow, we're going to change. This is could be pretty exciting. So little did I know what it would all mean. You know, I didn't really understand, but it would totally change my life, and in ways that were challenging, hard work, and just incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
I can't say anything other than that. It happened to me. I decided to do it again.
Yeah.
Within 4 years.
Yeah.
With the same woman.
Yeah.
And then we split up. And then years later, I actually, 11 years after I had my second child, I actually had another child with a different person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all 3 of those experiences profoundly influenced my life and continue to do so. Because once you have a child forever. I mean, they're not your child. They're not a child. Now they're an adult, and they're in your life as an adult who's your child.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the coolest thing in the world, I can tell you. It's so wonderful. So I don't know. I've learned a lot.
What did they teach you? What did these children teach you about love?
Oh, that love takes that to receive all the love there is to receive from those relationships. You have to be patient. It's up to you how you hold yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to be patient, compassionate. Mm-hmm. You have to show up and be there for that person. Yeah. And in a way that you never thought possible, because children do not take care of you. No. Ever. You have to take care of them. So that's why self-care is so important, because when you're in a relationship with a child, I mean, when they're older, it's different, but when they're young, they show up as needy. Yeah. Big time. You know, and you have to take care of them. And it's, matter of fact, this is a great question. You asked me such an important question. When I was dating, and in the beginning of online dating, I started to do some dating. One of the things I looked for was, I didn't know how to phrase it, but I wouldn't date someone who didn't have, either had raised children already, or who had done something else in their life that would have challenged them the same way, taking care of an elder, right? Being a teacher of primary school children, children, yeah. In other words, that person had to be. I had to know that person put out way more than you would normally do. Because that would mean with the person had the capacity to be in a relationship with me, because that's not easy.
Beautiful. And so we're going to end with this question for all the women who are listening, who are single, who are looking for a partner. What do you recommend is the number one quality to look for when you think about it, like to look for in a man when you are dating? What do you kind of recommend to the women out there who are listening to look for in a man?
Whoa. Good questions, Maya. You ask good questions. I can tell you've been doing this work. These lucky women. I think it's a combination of, it's two things, but it's all under the rubric of emotional intelligence. Because I'm thinking, of the thing that jumped into my mind was my father, who said to me, from a more traditional place, he said to me, Mark, you always have to respect women. And you're not ever with a woman unless she wants to be with you. You never force yourself upon her. You are holding her in a certain way. Now, it's not the way that I would use holding. It's slightly different. Yeah. But what he meant was you're providing a safe environment for her. You're giving her safety. Yeah. So safety, emotional intelligence, respect, good listening skills. The emotional intelligence to me is, I think I've always told you, for me, it's smart and heart. It's like when I was looking for somebody.
Yeah. Smart and heart. I love that. Yeah.
Smart and heart. I'm looking for someone who's smart and someone who has heart. And that heart is EI, is a heart around emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. That you want someone is successful, that's fine. You can just take that and add it on. You want someone that has more economic resources than you, okay, fine, add that on. But if you don't have the heart and smart in the center, you may have a difficult time, because I'm going to say this, and you can see it in the world around us. You can make a lot of money and you can be successful in the world. It doesn't mean you're smart or have emotional intelligence. Mm-mm. You could be smart in a very narrow area. That just doesn't mean you make a great person to be with.
Mm-mm. No way.
No way. Yeah. And I think for some people that's a harsh reality when they figure it out.
But that's so brilliant and so important for women to hear, because when we're young girls, we're taught, like, find someone who's successful, right? That is one of the biggest things that women are taught.
Is that right?
100%. Yeah. Like, okay. Find that, Prince Charming who can provide for you. Well, you know what? Provide, most people think, financially, that's kind of the old paradigm that's leaving us. But it's very much kind of wired in women, which is because our literal material security was dependent on men for hundreds of years in order to survive, because we didn't work before financially. It's still wired in women now to look for that provide financial security, and for men to be providers, to be financially successful, right? But then exactly, if there's not that emotional maturity, emotional intelligence, emotional responsiveness, then it's going to be, really hard to have that healthy relationship. So yeah, brilliant. I love that we're ending on this point, just exactly where we began, full circle.
That's great. This is quite the conversation. I want to thank you for the opportunity to engage.
Yeah, it's been really, really fun. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you taking the time to do this and to delve deep and open up about your life and your history and what's important to you. And I really think it's just so helpful for all the listeners out there to really deepen around these topics. So thank you so much, Mark. And we will see everyone soon.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Rewire Your Attachment Style. This is Maya Diamond. To receive your 2 free gifts to help you on your journey to lasting love and to start rewiring your attachment style today, go to empowerlove.us/love.